Welcome to Auto Transmission, the podcast from autorepairfocus.com. Every episode brings you the latest news, thoughts and opinions, and interviews from around the independent aftermarket. And this really is your podcast. We want you to be involved as much as possible. So if you have any thoughts or opinions on the latest news circulating in the industry, no matter what it is, feel free to drop us a line. Simply visit us on social media. Find Auto Repair Focus on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or you can email us, phil@autorepairfocus.com. Drop me a line. You could be involved in the next episode of Auto Transmission. As always, this podcast is recorded fairly live unless I make a complete and utter slip up. So you're getting access to some of my most random thoughts on the industry. In this edition, we're going to be looking at the latest news. I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the new and used car markets and their importance, especially when it comes to figures and the independent aftermarket. And I also speak to Steve Scott from Simply Diag about diagnostic practices, the best ways of getting an effective diagnosis on a vehicle, and most importantly, why you should be charging for diagnostics and not be afraid to do so. First up, however, as with every episode of Auto Transmission, I'm going to hand over to our wonderful voiceover artist to bring you the latest news from the last couple of weeks.
Schaeffler has spearheaded a project to modernise the workshop of popular aftermarket influencer Louise Baker, aka the Womanic. The makeover has been carried out as part of Schaeffler's Rep Expert Millionaire Makeover campaign, which has provided the Womanic with a shiny new premises. Other supporters behind the project included Ring, Osram, Shell, LKQ ECP and Pagid, who all contributed towards the makeover to ensure that Baker has a workshop which matches her drive and enthusiasm for the aftermarket industry. I Find Auto Parts, the new dedicated parts buying and selling online marketplace, has reached an important milestone as it continues to make waves in the automotive aftermarket. The trading platform has now reached the 50,000 mark of parts listed on its system and will soon boast more than 1,000 individuals who have registered accounts on the system. You can listen to our exclusive interview with the iFind team in a previous edition of Auto Transmission. Just search for the podcast wherever you get your streams. Increasing car repair costs continue to be the biggest issue for drivers when visiting a garage, as prices of parts, labour and increasing technology in cars all combine to put pressure on aftermarket businesses. The study of over 750 drivers by Fix My Car on what their biggest bugbear is when it comes to taking a car to the garage for repairs or routine maintenance saw car repair cost come out on top as the main frustration. In total, 27% of drivers said that the cost of repairs was their biggest bugbear, while 16% said it was the cost of routine maintenance just to keep their car on the road. Another 13% said the lack of transparency around pricing was one of their biggest frustrations.
And don't forget, you can stay up to date with all the latest news, product stories, video features, and of course the Auto Transmission podcast on autorepairfocus.com. You can also sign up for the free Insight newsletter, bringing all of this directly to your email inbox. Check us out on social media. Search for Auto Repair Focus on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And don't forget, you can sign up or subscribe, as they say, for free to the Auto Repair Focus YouTube channel to stay up to date with all of our latest video features and more. There will be more coming in the following months. That's the cryptic clue I'm giving you there. For now, though, that's the news. Let's move on to discussion. If you're a regular reader of autorepairfocus.com, and if you're not, why not? You really should be. You can also sign up, by the way, to our free Insight newsletter, which brings the latest news directly to your inbox. Slight cheeky plug there, but hey ho. If you do read regularly, and I really hope you do, you'll know that we provide some expert analysis on the new and used car markets in the UK. But you probably wonder what these figures actually have to do with what's going on in the industry, especially new car figures, which don't really seem to impact what the aftermarket is about at all. So I just want to quickly go into why these figures are important and why you should be taking note of them. Starting with the new car market. Yeah, these cars aren't going to be entering independent garages anytime soon. That much is true. In fact, if they were, probably be quite worried. Even though under warranty, they still can be serviced in independent garages. But anyway. But the importance of these figures is the fact that they are a representation of the future of the industry. Now, at the moment, the market is dominated by petrol and diesel, much less diesel these days in terms of new car figures. But we are seeing an increase in the number of hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and battery electric vehicles. And in fact, in July, these made up 47% of new car sales. So we are going to soon see a shift away from traditional internal combustion engines to electrified engines. A lot of talk is around battery electric vehicles, especially with these new incentives, which I'll go into in a minute. But the fact is, hybrid vehicles still have high voltage systems on them as well. And they've been around for quite a long time. So traction is growing with them. And that means that we will see a shift probably in the next year or so, I would imagine, where electrified, that's battery electric, plug-in hybrid, and hybrid, become the dominant powertrain type. In 3 years or so, these vehicles will start coming into independent workshops. And that's when it's suddenly going to kick off. And suddenly, those garages that are not prepared for electric vehicle servicing could struggle. The market's becoming much more diverse, and the industry really needs to diversify as well in order to make sure that it stays relevant. I was talking with someone this morning actually about the need to ensure that technology training is taken as soon as possible rather than waiting for the first vehicle, the second vehicle, the third vehicle to enter the workshop. You may be sitting on those skills for a little while, but when those vehicles do come in, and they will, you're ready. Now, if we look at the used car market, this is obviously the most important area for the industry because used car transactions mean cars are staying on the road for longer. In the second quarter of 2025, the latest data from the SMMT shows that nearly 2 million cars were changed hands, and that's up 1.7% against the second 3 months of 2024. That means nearly 4 million, or just over 4 million cars have changed hands in the first half of the year. So we're back to pre-pandemic levels. That's really important. This means that despite changes in the new car market, which has actually struggled this year, and overall it's up in the first 7 months, but July was a decline, there is so much strength in the used car sector. So garages are still going to be very busy. Now, the key thing to note, of course, is that 90.1% of all transactions, of those 2 million transactions in the second quarter, were petrol and diesel. 1.13 million petrols, 665,000 roughly diesel units. Their combined market share fell by 2 percentage points due to the growing popularity of second-hand electrified vehicles. That does mean we're going to see a lot more petrol and diesel still, but those numbers are decreasing. 1 in 10 cars, obviously, was electrified. Hybrids, their transactions increased 27.7% to 100,000 units roughly, with 5% of the market. Plug-in hybrids increased by 10.3% to 25,000 units, and battery electric vehicles showed the strongest growth, up 40% to record 68,721 units, accounting for 3.4% of the market. What does this mean? We're going to see more battery electric vehicles on the road. The government incentives, while making absolutely no sense in terms of which cars can get the higher grants, because at the moment well, there's a lot of vehicles that are applying for Band 2, which is the £1,500 incentive. But those drivers who want to trade in their current electric vehicles for a new model will probably do so very soon. That will see an influx of cars into the second-hand market. Also, the residual values of battery electric vehicles are, let's face it, rubbish, which means they're cheaper, which means anybody wanting a cheap electric vehicle will go to the second-hand market. And if you've got a second-hand car, where do you go for your servicing? Your independent garage. But if you're not prepared or ready to service these cars, drivers may go elsewhere, and that's the concern. So, new car and used car figures are very important. You can read the latest analysis of new car and used car data, and this is exclusive analysis, by the way, in-depth data delving on autorepairfocus.com. That's my TED Talk. Let's move on. A little earlier this year, as part of our diagnostics video feature, and again, if you haven't seen that, head to the Auto Repair Focus YouTube channel. Just search for Auto Repair Focus on YouTube and you'll find it right there. Completely forgot what I was saying now. There you go. See, this is what about recording live that I absolutely love. As part of that diagnostics video, I spoke to Steve Scott of Simply Diag. Now, what you'll see in the video is a very, very pared down, as you can probably imagine, interview. But we actually had a really, really good chat about the industry and about the need for garages to make sure that they are charging the right amount for diagnostics. We also touched upon the perception of the industry and whether that is actually impacting some garages thinking about charging or just letting diagnostic fees slide. The interview was fantastic. Steve gave some really great points, and this is what we talked about. When it comes to automotive diagnostics, why should garages not be afraid to charge for it? And why should they be telling their customers that they're going to be doing so?
I think it's very, very important, to be honest, for garages to educate the customers the fact that any diagnostics, it's no longer just a plug-in or a code read or something along those lines. Any diagnostic should be starting with a vehicle assessment at first, in the first instance. So you get a broad overview of what's going on with the vehicle, any relevant bulletins and things like that. And of course, it's time. And the person that's doing the diagnostics normally is one of the higher skilled people within the workshop, and their time is extremely valuable. If we start talking about code reads and code scans and things like that, it immediately devalues what we're doing as a trained professional technician. Whereas if we talk about a vehicle assessment and let's see what's going on, let's keep in that logical evidence-based process, obviously it's chargeable, and it's sometimes more skilled than the mechanical operations that you would do in a workshop. And I think it's very important to get that over to the customer and to actually add some value to their business, rather than doing a cheap code read to get something in to fit some parts. No, as a professional workshop, the value in our assessment is we'll get a right first time fix, we'll use proper equipment, proper information systems, and of course then that has a value. So it's all I do all day, every day is diagnostics, and it's a profitable, enjoyable, and challenging business, I think.
Just thinking of what you said about code readers, what could garages say to that customer that comes through the door and says, I already know what the problem is, I've got this code reader, it's a P1040 code or anything like that, I just need the oxygen sensor replaced? What should technicians respond to with that?
Well, for me, that the correct response there would be is a code read or a DTC is not a part number. And what you've got to think about is how many vehicles have you ever seen in your workshop where you fitted a part and that part hasn't fixed the problem? So educate your customer and say, well, it's, you know, a trouble code or a code scan. It's all it is a pointing stick. Right, here's an area of suspicion. Now we need to investigate that area of suspicion and see, has this component or this module got all the inputs it needs to give the output that the vehicle wants? So, you know, you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. So a code read for me it's just an indication that maybe we want to put a bit of a magnifying glass on that. And we, you know, yeah, fault code based parts replacement it might have been okay years ago when you know, when OBD and all that first came out, but the modern day technology, the stuff that's in cars now, and the consequences of replacing a part, you know, if you replace a headlamp on a Mercedes, for example, yeah, do you fully understand how that system works and the after replacement operations that might be required? You know, only to find out that it hasn't fit, you know, the light is still not coming on. So yeah, DTC is not a part number.
Do you think, and this is just me randomly talking now, I mean, do you think that's becoming an increasing problem with garages? Because obviously drivers now want to save money. So they think a 14 quid code reader off eBay will negate the need to, you know, pay 70, 80, 90, 100 quid on the first hour of labour.
Yeah, definitely. It's becoming an increasing problem, especially with all the TikTok adverts and that for these OBD dongles that you can plug in with the mobile phone apps and stuff like that. Yes, and again, it's the customer perception of the computer does it all. You know, it's the computer, and then, you know, we get the guy coming in and say, well, you've got a better computer, mine can't do this and mine can't do that. And honestly, really, it's the training, the technical information that we've got available to us as professionals. It's the difference. So your OBD dongle or your eBay code reader or something like that, it's the difference between going to and getting a £2.50 burger on a roadside stall and going for a 3-star Michelin meal. You know, you get what you pay for, and you know, experience costs money.
Well, in honesty, I'll go for the £2.50 burger myself, but you know, a greasy burger on a roadside, you can't beat that.
No.
And just one thing, I mean, I suppose you said about OBD dongles, the one that really sticks in my mind, mainly because advertising, is Carly.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think there's like the perception of the, you know, and you said about TikTok as well, the rip off and, you know, the poor perception this industry has. Do you think that is probably alluding to some garages sort of saying, oh, we won't charge for the diagnostic, we'll carry on and just, you know, we'll write that bit off because we don't want to be seen as ripping the customer off for something they can't see us doing?
Yeah, that's completely correct. I see it a lot of the time with other workshops and car trades and that bring stuff to me, and they're like, well, yeah, we'd use you more often, but you're more expensive. I'm like, but all the cars that you bring to me are cars that you've already put £1,000 worth of parts on because it had a code for it. And you know, I'm coming along and I'm spending an hour assessment and I'm finding the broken wire, you know. So yes, my assessment fee might be more expensive than anyone else around, but the fact of the matter is, in the long run, I'm not going to fit £1,000 worth of parts for a broken or a corroded wire. So
I do feel like we've got an uphill struggle a bit to try and get this industry, in the driver's view, recognised. But I mean, do you think we're winning the war? Do you think drivers are just sort of cars just becoming a bit more disposable now? I suppose that's the problem.
Yeah, vehicles are disposable. You know, a lot of the time now we're seeing vehicles that are only 4 or 5 years old and they're beyond economic repair in the eyes of the customer. So they definitely, you know, we've only got to look at the amount of auction cars that we get in from traders, where all of a sudden now we need a £2,000 module replacement or something like that. I think it's, as professionals, you know, and the tier 1 workshops that are out there, and the plenty, you know, the guys that you see at every training event, every networking event, every awards event. Yeah, it's up to us to talk about it more openly and more often about just what it takes to repair modern day vehicles, and to try and reduce that the public's perception of, well, actually it's a throwaway item, when in fact it's not. It's a luxury item, and it's the difference between walking to work or commuting in your Mercedes, isn't it?
There's some really good points in that discussion. I think the key takeaways should be always charge for diagnostics. Don't worry about what other people think. But one of the key things, and I've said key a lot here, but this is how my mind works. One of the key things is openness with customers will enforce trust. If you're telling them about what you're doing, and if they ever quibble the cost, all you need to do is point to the thousands of pounds worth of diagnostic equipment that you have in your garage and just tell them you didn't buy that from eBay. That is an investment, and that allows you to do the detective work. If they want you to simply fix parts or throw the parts can at it, then fine, but you won't solve the problem. You pay for the work that you do and the experience that you have. And it reminds me of that old analogy, the one that goes around on social media every now and again. A shipping company had this really new expensive ship, couldn't get it to work. They called hundreds of engineers who came round, did things, looked at it, stripped things, couldn't get it working. And they called a really old chap in who looked at it, spent about 15 minutes just walking around, tapped it with the hammer, and hey presto, the engine kicked into life. And he gave them a bill for £1,000. And the shipping company said, but you just hit it with a hammer. He said, yes, that's £5 worth of the cost. The other £995 is my time and experience over the years knowing where to hit it and get it working. And that's the point. You're experts, and you spend thousands becoming experts. So you should be charging for your time, getting that return on your investment, but also telling the customer that it's not as simple as a fault code. And if they want to use a £15 reader or a dongle or believe everything that they hear on social media, then they can. But they'll never get their car fixed the way you can fix it. Diagnostics is an important part of the aftermarket today. And as Steve said, we need to be paying for it. Everyone needs to pay. And it is something that, as we build trust and build openness, people will come to understand. That's all we have time for in this episode of Auto Transmission. I'd like to thank our fantastic voiceover artist and Steve Scott for joining me on this edition of the episode. See, recorded live, brains going. We would like your feedback. What do you think about the independent aftermarket of today? What are you working on? What are you seeing in your workshops? Do you think that used car figures are worthwhile to look at, to listen to whatever? You can get in touch with us at phil@autorepairfocus.com. Message us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Threads. We're on there as well. And don't forget to check out autorepairfocus.com. We are trialing at the moment a new way of you getting involved with voice clips. All you need to do is visit the website and click the tab on the right hand side that says voice. There you can record your thoughts on whatever story you are looking at, and we will use your thoughts in future editions of Auto Transmission, so you can really get involved with the industry podcast and air your views. No matter what they are, we want to hear them. Don't forget as well to subscribe to receive Auto Transmission on whichever podcast platform you listen on, whether that be Apple Podcast, YouTube, YouTube Music, Spotify, or Amazon Music. We're on all of them. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.